It seems as though the entirety of Naruto as a show revolves around Jinchuriki, which makes sense when you think about it when you consider the fact that Jinchuriki are some of the strongest people in Naruto as a whole. I mean, how could they not be? They're humans who have bonded with tailed beasts. And tailed beasts are basically just masses of supercharged chakra, so putting that into people is gonna result in some strong people. But here's the thing, even though the show does revolve around Jinchuriki, it feels as though at times Jinchuriki are underexplained. And there's a lot of things about them that feel underexplained. Does every single Jinchuriki have an 8 trigram seal? Why are some tailed beasts easier to be a Jinchuriki of than others? But most importantly, there seems to be a lot of confusion that revolves around Jinchuriki forms. What power-ups do these forms give? Why can only certain people use partial transformations? Why is the chakra of every tailed beast orange? Why is Naruto the only person able to use a Jin cloak? Why is Naruto's glowy and ethereal when everybody else's is very physical and real? Well, we're gonna answer all these questions and more in a second, but please guys, for me, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And while you guys are clicking away at things, go ahead and follow my other YouTube page, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto, I talk literally any other anime. We're talking Bleach, Hunter x Hunter, AOT, JJK, MHA, Chainsaw Man. Before we get into all that, guys, today we have to talk about a brand new sponsor to the page, Naraka Blade Point. Naraka Blade Point is an insane melee battle royale game that features fast-paced melee combat, incredible mobility via grappling hook, and a wide array of melee weapons. But why get into Naraka Blade Point now? Well, Naraka Blade Point is currently offering a 50% off discount code on Xbox. But if a good deal isn't a good enough deal for you, let me sell you on Naraka real quick. Naraka redefines movement in battle royales with its mobility. Forget not being able to mantle over a rock correctly. You can get to every single corner of the map in Naraka Blade Point using your grappling hook. And on top of that, Naraka offers a broad range of heroes to choose from, with each hero having its own unique skills. Like my favorite hero, Yotohime, whose skill is having a massive sword. And you can go beyond just choosing your hero. You see, because Naraka Blade Point has some of the greatest customization in-game of all time. We've seen people make their characters look like handsome Squidward, Nicki Minaj, Lady Gaga. You can even map your own face onto your hero in-game. So what are you guys waiting for? Naraka Blade Point is 50% off on Xbox right now and free on Xbox Game Pass. This is the best time to get into Naraka Blade Point ever. So go ahead and download it and I'll see you in there. So Jinchuriki forms, they seem kind of straightforward, but they're also kind of confusing, and Naruto's presence brings up more questions than it answers. So in order to get to answering these questions, let's start with the easy questions. What is a Jinchuriki form? Well, a Jinchuriki form is a collaboration of chakra between a tailed beast and a human, and that collaboration can scale to multiple different levels. The first base level is known as the initial Jinchuriki form, but there's also version 1, version 2, partial transformation mode, tail beast mode, and in Naruto's case, 9 tails chakra mode. Now obviously no Jinchuriki immediately awakens to having tailed beast mode, which for the majority of Jinchurikis is the highest level of power they'll ever reach with their respective tailed beast. As a Jinchuriki gains time with their tailed beast, they improve their relationship and learn how to tap into each other's powers more, assuming the tailed beast wants to collaborate with the human at all. You see, because some tailed beasts have a much better temperament for humans than others. Tailed beasts like Shukaku despise humans, and thus people like Gaara, who's one of the better known Jinchurikis, never gets access to the initial version, version 1, or version 2 of the Jinchuriki forms. And the only boost that Gaara ever got from being a Jinchuriki is when Shukaku would take over his unconscious body and do either a partial or a full transformation into tail beast mode, of which Gaara wasn't under control. However, people like Isobu, the 3 tails, are incredibly compatible with humans. See, Isobu is a very soft-spoken tailed beast, and thus Yagura, who was already an incredibly talented ninja, had no real difficulty binding with him to get him to turn into a full tailed beast mode for Yagura that Yagura could control, and thus Yagura was able to become a perfect Jinchuriki. See, the terminology of perfect Jinchuriki seems a bit weird to me, but basically what perfect Jinchuriki means is that if the Jinchuriki can undergo a tailed beast transformation. I'd argue that Naruto is the only perfect Jinchuriki, but alas. But we're far away from talking about perfect Jinchuriki just yet, because before we get to the final transformations, we should talk about the first transformations and what they give to the Jinchuriki who activate them. You see, the initial Jinchuriki form kind of exists in a weird place of canonicity. I say this because we've only ever seen the initial Jinchuriki form in Utakata in filler, Menma in filler, Sora in filler, and Naruto. If we're only looking at the manga, Naruto is the only person who's ever had access to the initial Jinchuriki version. So it kind of leads us to believe that this might actually only be exclusive to Naruto and not all Jinchuriki. But regardless, since we did see it in filler, we might as well talk about it like it is canon. So what is this initial Jinchuriki form and what does it do for you? See, the initial Jinchuriki form is what happens happens when a Jinchuriki taps into the power of their tailed beast. And it's at this point that they're surrounded by red wispy chakra that different Jinchuriki can use in different ways. Naruto can use this chakra to add shockwaves to his punches and his roars, while Utakata was shown to be able to use this chakra to form waves. Now, considering the fact that Utakata had the six-tailed Saiken inside of him, a water-based tailed beast, the application of this tailed beast chakra in this direction makes sense. And Naruto using Kurama's chakra to make shockwaves with roars also lines up with what we know about Kurama, because basically every time he's ever been released, he's screaming. And thus this leads us to believe that the chakra released from the tailed beast in the initial Jinchuriki form can only be used in accordance to what the tailed beast's abilities usually are. On top of the control of his extra chakra, strength, speed, and healing are all increased. And in this initial form, the Jinchuriki then begin to take on the appearance of their tailed beast. Naruto gets red eyes with a slitted pupil. His whiskers become wider and longer, his hair becomes longer and spikier, his teeth become sharp, and Utakata, when he underwent this formation, became paler with paler eyes that made him look like Saiken. And sometimes these physical alterations are the only things that key us into the fact that a Jinchuriki has entered this mode, because Jinchurikis can enter this mode without the chakra of their tailed beast emanating from them. We saw this with Menma. But enough about possibly filler versions, we should talk about an actual canon version of Jinchuriki forms, version 1. Now, version 1 is basically just a beefed up version of the initial Jinchuriki form. This increases the amount of chakra released from the tailed beast into a dense shroud around the Jinchuriki. The chakra comes out in a cloak of sorts that bubbles around the user like it looks like boiling liquid. We're not entirely sure why the chakra boils. It's a possibility that the chakra itself that's being released is so dense that it heats itself up, because like from a physics standpoint, pressure means heat. And this chakra shroud is actually so dense that it can protect the user from physical harm. However, because the chakra is also super dense and super heated, it can also hurt the user. Kind of a double-edged sword. In this version 1 cloak, any physical alterations that have happened to the Jinchuriki will become more pronounced. Whiskers get bigger, fangs get longer, teeth get more jagged, but in this form, something else very important happens. While in the initial Jinchuriki version, the chakra that's being released has no true physical form, in version 1, the chakra shroud begins to take form of the tailed beast that it's being released from. Killer Bee gets chakra horns, Naruto gets big old fox ears, but more importantly than anything, tails begin to grow. And these tails represent a couple of very important things for version 1. One is the fact that the chakra surrounding the Jinchuriki is malleable, meaning that it can be compressed or stretched. And this is usually done in order to make chakra arms that are used to grab people, throw objects, deflect things. But also these tails represent a power meter. That is to say that these tails cue you into how much power the Jinchuriki is currently pulling from the tailed beast. Every Jinchuriki starts with one tail, and if you're the Jinchuriki of Shukaku, that's the only amount of tails you can grow, because he is the one-tailed tailed beast. However, should the tailed beast inside of you hypothetically have more than one tail, in this version 1 form you can grow more tails, until you've reached the max amount of tails that your tailed beast has. And every one of these additional tails gives the Jinchuriki greater strength, speed, agility, and healing. However, every additional tail also has the Jinchuriki in question lose more and more control of the tailed beast inside of them. At least in most situations. See, there's two ways to activate the version 1 cloak. One way to activate it is to pull chakra from the tailed beast sealed inside of you, while the other way to activate it is to use your own chakra. But what does that mean? Let's go over the first way to activate it first, since that's the way that we see version 1 activated the majority of the time. See, as we understood it, version 1 of the Jinchuriki cloak basically only happened when Naruto was either enraged or the seal on his stomach became weaker. And when Naruto or any Jinchuriki got angry and or their seal got weakened, the tailed beast chakra would leak out and turn into a version 1 cloak. This type of version 1 cloak will slowly corrode the user, and anybody who touches this version 1 cloak will be left with a massive burn. On top of this, anybody within proximity of this version 1 cloaked Jinchuriki will feel uneasy, because the chakra being leaked out is usually lined with malice, which is why when Jinchurikis use this form and rely on the power of the tailed beast, they become more animalistic. They also gain a separate ability, as the version 1 cloak actually operates on its own, taking control of the Jinchuriki's body, meaning that if hypothetically there was an attack coming from the Jinchuriki's blind spot, the shroud could block it. But that's the less stable way to activate version 1. The more stable way was demonstrated to us by Killer Bee, who used his own chakra to create a version 1 cloak with 8 tails, which still conferred him all of the same benefits of an 8-tailed version 1 cloak. It wasn't until Naruto befriended Kurama that he was able to do this, and upon mastering this ability, Naruto was able to give others a version 1 9-tailed cloak that conferred them all of the benefits of a version 1 cloak. Version 2, however, however, is a bit different, and it's not something you can hand off to somebody else. You see, version 1 is relatively similar to version 2, in that it operates as a tailed beast leaking out their chakra to the Jinchuriki. However, instead of being a boiling shroud, in version 2, the chakra of the tailed beast takes a humanoid shape. That is to say that the chakra that's being released from the tailed beast actually becomes even more dense, since it's no longer a bubbling, flowing cloak. It instead becomes a hyperdense layer of chakra that acts as an endoskeleton for the Jinchuriki, coating the Jinchuriki's body in super dense tailed beast chakra. In version 2 takes the physical changes to the Jinchuriki one step further. See, while in version 1 or the initial version, most of the physical attribute changes are incurred to the Jinchuriki themselves, like their face. However, since the entirety of the Jinchuriki is now wrapped in a super dense layer of tailed beast chakra, more than the face begins to change. In fact, the Jinchuriki's body starts to take the shape of whatever tailed beast they are in version 2 of. That is to say, if you were the Jinchuriki of a Sobu, in version 2 you would begin to grow a shell. In version 2 of Kurama, you grow long claws and jagged teeth. In version 2 of Gyuki, you grow tentacles. Version 2 is essentially making an incredibly chakra-dense miniature version of a tailed beast. And because you have essentially made a miniature version of a tailed beast, musculature mass increases exponentially, making the Jinchuriki faster, more agile, and significantly stronger than they were in version 1, even at their maxed out tail range. But here's the thing, this miniature tailed beast will never be bigger than the Jinchuriki themselves. And we know this because we've actually seen physical attributes shining through a version 2 cloak. What do I mean by this? When Han, the Jinchuriki of the Five Tails, Kukyo, activates his version 2 cloak, we can still see in his version 2 cloak the furnace and hat he wears, which further corroborates the idea that a version 2 cloak is still just the Jinchuriki wrapped in hyper-dense chakra. On top of taking the physical shape that the Jinchuriki is modeling their tailed beast form after, they can also grow chakra bones. These are incredibly dense bones created from chakra, and it's also technically a yin-yang release. These chakra bones can be applied to hands to make them sharper, or heads to make things like a lariat significantly more impactful. We saw this from Killer Bee when he grew a chakra skull on his version 2 Gyuki cloak to make his lightning release lariat significantly more powerful. What's odd about version 2 though is the whole tails debacle. 98% of Jinchurikis are only able to enter version 2 with their max amount of tails, meaning that if you were to go to version 1 from version 2 as the Jinchuriki of Isobu, the 3 tails, in your version 2 state you would have 3 tails. There's no you start with 1, work your way up to 2, and finish with 3. And that is the case for most Jinchuriki. However, Kurama is weird, because in both Naruto and Kinkaku and Ginkaku, this isn't the case. You see, for Naruto, we've seen him activate his version 2 cloak with 4 tails, 6 tails, and 7 tails in the anime. And none of these difference in tails has ever confirmed anything that looks like a power up or a power down. So as to why Naruto awakes into version 2 state with not 9 tails, we don't really know. You could possibly correlate it to the fact that for the majority of the show, he only had half of Kurama, and thus wasn't able to create a full version 2 cloak, but that's thin at best. But the confusion doesn't necessarily end there. You see, because both Kinkaku and Ginkaku, who are also Jinchurikis of Kurama to some extent, while in version 2 state, did not manifest 9 tails. And also for some reason, while in this version 2 state, one of their tails was longer than the rest of them. Does this mean something? Is it tied into Kurama somehow? We're not entirely sure, but for Kinkaku and Ginkaku, we can kind of make an assumption. I mean, Kinkaku and Ginkaku weren't real Jinchurikis of Kurama. I mean, sure, they spent 2 weeks inside of Kurama eating away at his stomach lining, and thus took a bunch of his chakra and were able to manifest that into version 1 and version 2 cloaks. But it feels safe to assume that them not emulating all 9 tails is probably symbolic of the fact that they weren't real Jinchuriki of Kurama. But then again, Naruto can't do all 9 tails either, so like, I don't know, where's the line? But here's the problem. Once again, there's a couple of ways to enter version 2. You can do it with your own chakra willingly, which is what we see from the likes of Yagura, Killer Bee, Han, and just like with version 1, by using your own chakra, version 2 does not hurt the Jinchuriki. However, we've never seen Naruto willingly activate version 2. And the same could be said for Blue Bee, the Jinchuriki of Gyuki before Killer Bee. Basically, the only time we've ever seen Naruto activate version 2 is when he's given into his own rage, and the seal on him is weakened so much that Kurama takes over his body. And because of this, the consequences are very similar to version 1 for Naruto before he befriends Kurama. See, like I said earlier, version 2 makes the chakra around the Jinchuriki significantly more dense and therefore significantly more hot and corrosive. And therefore, the longer that Naruto's in version 2, the more damage his body incurs. In fact, Naruto's body sustains so much damage that while he's in version 2, basically all of his skin corrodes away and his blood makes the cloak even darker. It's similar to how when Might Guy accessed the 8th gate, his blood became so hot it began to evaporate and made his chakra aura red. However, Kurama's regenerative abilities are always fixing this melted skin. The problem is accessing version 2 actually shortens Naruto's life, much in the same way that using mitotic regeneration by Tsunade or Sakura shortens their lives, because essentially they're increasing the mitotic regeneration of their cells to replace dead or dying ones. Kurama healing Naruto is no different. These skin cells and blood that boils when Naruto accesses version 2 gets replaced by regenerative abilities. However, because this requires mitotic regeneration to speed up, it increases the amount of times Naruto's cells have mitotically divided. And since cells can only mitotically divide a certain amount of times until they go into cell death, Naruto's life shortened. Fortunately for us, Naruto doesn't use version 2 anymore because he simply doesn't have to. And even if he did access version 2, now he'd be using his own chakra and therefore not burning off his skin. Naruto, more than anything else nowadays, uses partial transformation. I wouldn't necessarily consider this a step above in terms of power scaling to version 2. It just operates very differently from version 2. However, some partial transformations can be considered stronger than what you could achieve with a version 2 state. It just depends on the tailed beast and the Jinchuriki. But in essence, a partial transformation is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of fully turning into a tailed beast using a tailed beast transformation, a Jinchuriki is able to turn a certain part of their body into that of a tailed beast to access the abilities of said tailed beast. You see, partial transformation is a bit weird because not a lot of Jinchuriki seem to be able to use it. See, obviously we've seen Naruto and Killer Bee use it, and we've seen Fu and Roshi use it while they were alive, and those are really the only canon Jinchuriki we've seen use partial transformation while they were alive. However, when Obito brought a bunch of Jinchuriki back to be his 6 paths of pain, all the Jinchuriki that he brought back were able to partially transform one tail. Now, this could have just been more for like an aesthetic standard to remind us which Jinchuriki had which tailed beast, because we never saw Utakata, Yagura, or Han do partial transformations, but when they were reincarnated, they could. So do we believe that they could use this transformation while they were alive and just chose not to because it wasn't that strong? Or that being Edo Tensei gave them the ability to use this partial transformation? It's up in the air. I'll let you decide. But for the moment, let's get talking about the actual partial transformations themselves. While by far the most common one we see is Jinchuriki producing tails behind them where they would be if they were a tailed beast. We see this with Killer Bee to increase his dexterity in battle to be able to block incoming attacks, grab tree branches to swing, or just snag enemies. See this with Fu, who doesn't necessarily manifest tails, but manifests 2 wings by her hips to allow her to fly. And then obviously we see it with Toby's 6 paths of pain. But this is the more controlled circumstance. These partial transformations were done willingly by Jinchurikis to aid them in battle. The rarer circumstance is when a Jinchuriki doesn't have control over the tailed beast inside of them, or has given into their rage, or the seal on them that holds their tailed beast has simply broken. This is the circumstance with Gaara and Naruto. See, obviously in Naruto's fight against Pain, he was put into Jibuka Tensei. That essentially made Naruto a gravity well that was pulling in rocks and sealing him away. And in this moment, Naruto unleashed 8 of the 9 tails of Kurama into a partial transformation, which was interesting for a couple of reasons. One, the version of Kurama that we saw obviously didn't have like fur or a 9th tail, but it was physical, which is weird, but also lends us to a couple of theories. Now, obviously the only thing that was physical was Kurama's body, and all of the tails were made of chakra like a version 2 state, but this still counts as a partial transformation because Naruto didn't undergo a full transformation because that would have required his 8 trigram seal to break completely. But why was Kurama's body physical? Because when Naruto undergoes a full tail beast transformation, Kurama is made of chakra, not physical flesh and blood. Even though a Jinchuriki undergoing a full tail beast transformation usually makes a tail beast out of flesh and blood, not chakra. Well, this lends us to the theory and the question of why Naruto's tail beast transformation is different. And while there's no concrete answer and there's a bunch of theories on it, I genuinely only believe one of the theories is worth discussing. You see, some people will postulate that Naruto's tailed beast form looks the way that it does because he's Ashura's reincarnate. And because we saw in a fight between Ashura and Indra that Ashura had access to this giant chakra mech that looks a lot like Kurama's. That's a fine theory, I guess, but the one that I genuinely believe in revolves around the 8 trigram seal. Specifically, its power and how it allows a Jinchuriki and a tailed beast to interact. You see, Killer Bee actually told Naruto that his 8 trigram seal was stronger than the seal that was used to seal Gyuki inside of him. And this makes sense considering the fact that the 8 trigram seal was taught to Minato by Kushinohus and Uzumaki, who were known for their Fuin Jutsu, aka sealing jutsu. On top of this, in chapter 91, Jiraiya told Naruto that the 8 trigram seal allows Naruto and Kurama's chakra to slowly meld instead of keeping them separate, which points me in the direction of believing that when Naruto manifests a full tailed beast transformation, that is actually a combination of his and Kurama's chakra, unlike your standard tailed beast transformation where it is entirely the tailed beast chakra and the Jinchuriki is just in charge. And this theory is strengthened by the fact that Kurama has only been shown to manifest physically in one circumstance, and that was in Naruto's fight against Pain. And this was done because the 8 trigram seal was almost entirely eradicated during this fight, implying that its influence in the separation of Naruto from Kurama in terms of chakra allowed Kurama to manifest a physical flesh and blood body. Now, Gaara's partial transformation is a bit different. Gaara's partial transformation is a bit odd. It operates more like a version 1 form than a partial transformation, in that every other partial transformation makes real flesh and blood components of a tailed beast created using chakra. However, Gaara's partial transformation after his fight against Sasuke is created by piling sand onto his body. And once enough sand has been piled onto his body, he begins to look like Shukaku. But this isn't the manifestation of Shukaku's body, because Shukaku, while he can control sand, is not made of sand. Essentially, this partial transformation kind of just operates like Gaara having a massive power-up. It's like the best version of Gaara's sand armor. And the more covered in sand he becomes, the stronger and faster he becomes. But what's truly odd about this transformation is the fact that since it's made of sand, Gaara can detach his limbs, as we saw when he attached one of his hands to keep Sasuke pinned against a tree. Now, Gaara's partial transformation probably operates like this because Kishimoto wrote this part of the story long before he thought about Jinchuriki battling full flesh mech form, but still looking back at it now, it's an outlier amongst a lot of other partial transformations. But enough about partial transformation, let's get to full transformations, also known as tailed beast modes. Hypothetically, every single Jinchuriki that's ever been a Jinchuriki is able to use this mode. It's just whether or not you want to live after using it is the issue. You see, because every Jinchuriki who's ever Jinchuriki'd could have the seal on them break and then undergo a full tailed beast transformation. Only problem is with that happening is the tailed beast kind of gets out of you and then you die. But if you don't want to die, there's another way to do it. If you find unison or completely subject your tailed beast to your will, you will be able to undergo a tailed beast transformation, which essentially makes a replica version of the tailed beast with all of their strengths and abilities as they existed prior to being sealed. And then once you undergo this transformation, there's actually something that's pretty cool that's not talked about and a lot of people don't know that are fans of Naruto. See, obviously as the Jinchuriki, you can control the tailed beast in said situations. However, as a Jinchuriki, you can also elect to have the tailed beast control this form. Now, this is usually only done in a unison situation, because if you let the tailed beast take control while it's in a tailed beast transformation, it's probably just going to destroy things if you subjugated it. But after undergoing a tailed beast transformation, the Jinchuriki can kind of just sit back, kick their legs up, and let the tailed beast do all the hard work. But here's the thing, that is dangerous though. Killer Bee himself states that a tailed beast transformation is not allowed under normal circumstances, because if left unchecked, it could result in the destruction of an entire village. And this power mostly comes from a tailed beast's ability to use a tailed beast bomb. You see, tailed beast bomb by and large are the pinnacle of power in the Naruto universe. However, we as a community don't know as much about them as we really should. See, we know that a tailed beast ball is a combination of positive and negative chakra at an 8-to-2 ratio. As to why they called it an 8-to-2 ratio and not a 4-to-1 ratio, I will literally never understand. What's weird though is positive chakra is considered black while negative chakra is considered white. But in the anime, this chakra is blue and red, which inevitably forms a purple tailed beast ball. This ball can then be fired or consumed and shot out in a laser. This laser allows for the tailed beast to have more pinpoint accuracy to where they want to direct their destruction, while a tailed beast ball acts more like a bomb. Yuki has gone so far as to sort of half consume a tailed beast ball, and that way he didn't shoot out a ball or a laser, he fired the tailed beast ball as a wave. And the scariest bit about a tailed beast ball is there's hypothetically no limit to how large they can get. As long as you hold on to the 8-to-2 ratio of positive to negative chakra, you're good. See, tailed beast balls operate a lot like a version 2 cloak. It's a combination of chakra so dense that the tailed beast who's usually generating it will form a crater under them because of the weight of the chakra. But tailed beast balls are also one of the fastest things in the entirety of the show, being able to travel miles in seconds. Tailed beast balls can also be made in a myriad of different ways depending on who you're the Jinchuriki of. Naruto is shown to be able to create tailed beast bomb with his hands and add nature energy to counteract the abilities of True Seeker orbs, while Madara has shown to be able to create a tree that can generate tailed beast bombs with the power of the 10 tails. And while tailed beast bombs can be used in a version 2 state, they're most powerful when used by a fully transformed tailed beast. But tailed beast bombs aren't the only things that can be modified. Tailed beast transformations themselves can also be modified. Naruto is able to access Sage mode while undergoing a full tailed beast transformation, which in itself puts Kurama into Sage mode of sorts, giving his Kurama tailed beast transformation rings around its eyes. And these rings around Kurama's eyes stay when Naruto enters his Sage of Six Paths mode. Naruto is also able to make shadow clones who are capable of undergoing a full tailed beast transformation. And Naruto was actually able to combine these shadow clones into a form very similar to the one used by Ashura Otsutsuki. This ability to move freely within his fully transformed tailed beast state is possibly the reason that Naruto doesn't have a flesh and blood version like everybody else. So he can do things like shadow clones and combine those forms to make an Ashura Otsutsuki ripoff. But Naruto's abilities actually go beyond that of just the standard tailed beast transformation, as Naruto has Nine Tails Chakra mode, also known as KCM. But unfortunately, we're gonna have to save covering KCM for a separate video, because let's be real, I could make an entire other video about KCM, and somehow I haven't done that yet. If we're being entirely fair, I don't know how I haven't made this video yet. And then obviously becoming a 10 Tails Jinchuriki is also a very different and very powerful mode that confers you a bunch of abilities, but also whole video on that as well. And if we're being real, I did technically drop an hour and a half and a 45-minute video on my other page this week, and my editor is like close to the edge, so we're gonna keep this one brief. But before we end this video, I do want to postulate on one more possible theory, and it's a question I asked in the beginning of this video. Why is all tailed beast chakra red? Why is the chakra that comes out during version 1 or version 2 the same color for every single tailed beast? Well, we never technically get an answer for this, but with the evidence given to us by both the anime and the manga, we can make an educated guess. See, tailed beasts are the only people on Earth who seem to be able to tap into negative and positive chakra, which prior to the explanation of tailed beast balls had never really been touched. But if we look at the construction of a tailed beast ball and the positive and negative chakra that are getting pulled in, the negative chakra looks eerily similar to the chakra that covers the body of a Jinchuriki in a version 2 cloak, which makes a lot of sense when you consider the word negative. I mean, after all, this is chakra so dense that it quite literally boils the skin off the Jinchuriki. Another theory states that positive and negative chakra might just be another term for yin and yang chakra, which makes sense when you consider the fact that yin and yang are supposed to represent polar opposites working in harmony, which if you look at a tailed beast ball is exactly what a tailed beast ball is. So it's a possibility that a version 1, version 2 partial transformation, and even a full transformation of a tailed beast is actually just the manifestation of a yang release using tailed beast chakra. But once again, unfortunately, we just don't know. Which of those two theories do you guys believe? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And go follow my other page, The Weeb Commander. I'm literally murdering my editor with very, very long videos. So if you want to be entertained or lulled to sleep, that's the place.